Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be ranking the seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. There's 7 of them, and we watched all of them. I took notes, as you've seen here on the screen before you. Anyway, we can start at the beginning. We got a podcast on the channel. We're going through all the Star Trek episodes. We did TOS, TNG, we're on DS9 right now. If you're interested in hearing sort of an episode-by-episode breakdown, you can check that out. It's on the channel. I'll put a link in the video description. But anyway, we have one of the things we do is at the end of each episode, we have a 1 to 5 rating scale, and we give each episode a 1 to 5. 1 being the terrible episodes that you never want to watch again. 2 being episodes that might have some problems to them, and they're not really that great. 3 is an average kind of quote-unquote boring episode of Star Trek. 4 would be one that maybe you'd show somebody. That's kind of when things are improving a little bit on the episode front. You wouldn't be embarrassed to show a 4 to somebody who was unfamiliar with Star Trek. And 5 are the all-time classics, the ones that always make those top 10 lists and everything. So, as I said, I keep track of my ratings as we've done all of these seasons 1 to 7 of TNG. And I've got it all color-coded here. And you can see on the bottom that there's actually an average. Make sure that comes up. There's actually an average for each season. So season 1 has a 2, 2 has a 2.5. The highest rating, according to just the raw number crunching, is season 6 with 3.19. But the point of this video, I guess, is we were talking on the podcast the other day about how your memory changes so much about things like this. Like, this is how I felt about these episodes at the time when we did them. This is probably a more accurate representation of the quality of each episode because it was fresh in my mind when we were doing it, for whatever that is worth. But I thought that I'd go back and sort of do a video where if someone had to offer me the seasons, like which one would I take? Or if they had the complete set of DVDs or whatever, and they're like, you're only going to be able to watch these, so how about you rank them or whatever? Like it's kind of a hard way to explain it, but if you had to eliminate some seasons, which ones would you eliminate first? I guess would be a better way to put it. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is running through all the seasons, using my ratings here as a kind of a guide and explaining why I would put them each where they are. So again, according to just the raw numbers, I have season 6 with a 3.1 as the quote-unquote best TNG season. Season 3 and season 5 are 3.15, so they're right behind it. Season 4, 3.08. Season 7, 2.62. Season 2 is 2.5, and then season 1 is a 2. So anyway, let's get more into the actual interesting aspect of this, and I'll start to break down why I would rank the seasons the way that I do outside of those kind of raw data numbers. So I think we'll start at the top here. Or should we? No, we'll start. I guess we'll start at the bottom and then work our way up. You guys kind of have a guide, obviously, of what we've been doing here because I have the numbers in front of me. But the worst episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation is clearly season 1, right? So I don't think I'm surprising anybody. Looking over at the little chart here, we've got a lot of reds and we've got grays. The best they do is get to a gray, which is a 3 out of 5. The show started out really, really poorly. It took a long time for even in season 1 to get going. I think there's 26 episodes in season 1. And I don't think I'm shocking the world when I'd say the season 1 is the season that you could get rid of. There's really no redeeming factors to season 1. No one knew what they were doing. The episodes aren't very good. It feels very much like a sort of rebooted TOS update, and it doesn't have the charm of TOS. The cast is too big, so everyone feels very spread out. No one's really strongly drawn as a character. The direction is weak. The scripts are kind of awful and cliche and silly, like episodes like Justice. Lonely Among Us is one of the worst. Eventually, they started getting into decent episodes where you get around like 1100, 1001, Data Lore, moving down into Conspiracy, which is what I think the best episode of the first season is. But in general, season 1 is the season that you could easily get rid of, I think, and no one would really have any problems with that. So the next one is where I think I could kind of start to get cute here. So the next decision about what the second worst season would be, it's either season 2, which I have as a 2.5, or it's season 7, which is a 2.62. And I thought about this for a while, and I don't know if I'm... Let me give the positives for each one. So season 2 is when the show actually started to get into its stride a little bit. You have some greens over here, as you see, which are 4s, and there is one 5, in my opinion, in season 2, which is Q Who, the Borg introduction episode with Q. The Royale, Measure of a Man, and A Matter of Honor, and Peak Performance are all 4 out of 5s. The show actually started doing what it was going to be doing at this point. They settled in a little bit. Pulaski was there instead of Crusher. There's still a lot of terrible episodes. The Child and Where the Silence Have Lease are the 1-2 that kick off the year, and they're awful. Has the Clip Show, Shades of Grey. But in general, season 2 is... maybe I'll save that. So the other thing, season 7, on the other hand, starts off terribly with a descent all the way to Attached, and Inheritance, I suppose, because Force of Nature is a 1. Season 7 never really has a great episode until All Good Things. And All Good Things is really just more impressive as a series wrap-up and nailing a series finale more than it is a standalone classic of an episode. Season 7 is reviled on some level. Season 7, the show had clearly run out of gas quite a bit. Season 6 going into season 7 was a very large drop-off in quality. Not a lot of good episodes in season 7. There's some okay ones. I think the Genesis, the Pegasus, Parallels are all pretty good. Lower Decks is a quality episode. But that's the battle here. So if someone said, which one would you rather watch? As we're whittling down my DVD selection here, which season would you prefer to get rid of if you had to get rid of one of them? And looking at them now, I think it's season 2. And maybe a lot of this just depends on season 7. The show looked better than it does in season 2. Season 1 and 2 are really dated looking. They're not all that pleasant to watch. Season 2, the only thing that might save it from being the second worst season is the fact that the storylines got a little bit odd in season 2. There's things like Times Squared and the Royale. Q-Who was interesting. Up the Long Ladder, the Irish episode, is bizarre. There's just a lot of weird episodes that there's no weirdness like that in season 7. Season 2 is really like an exploratory season of the show. Season 2 is the least like any of the other seasons, I think, is the way that I call season 2. They were really trying something different. It didn't always work, and it didn't work a lot of the time, but that's the one thing I respect about season 2. Season 7 is more just a run out of gas, boring year of Star Trek. However, the cast is more comfortable at that point. The production team are more comfortable. So I think I would keep season 7 just to keep All Good Things. Maybe might be the only reason. So that'll be my decision. So that's the ranking there. So season 1 is the worst. Then we've got season 2, second worst. Then season 7 would fit in right behind that. Of the sort of quote unquote good years of TNG, which I would call seasons 3 to 7, 7 is by far the worst. And that's because the show had run out of gas, as I've said numerous times. So that's it. Season 1, season 2, season 7. Those are the bottom 3 seasons of TNG. The next one to come up, so between seasons 3, 4, 5, and 6. This one's actually pretty easy for me. Season 4 is the weakest of the 4 middle years of season 3 to season 6. Season 4, when we were going through and watching it, really struck me by how, let me scroll this up a little bit. Season 4 really struck me by how boring season 4 was. There's a lot of family episodes in it. It resolves the best of both worlds thing, has family, which are okay. After that, has a bunch of family stuff, which is Brothers, Remember Me, sort of. What are we doing? Reunion is family done. There must be a few other ones in here. Redemption is kind of family. Season 4 strikes me as a boring middling year where they weren't really sure what to do with this one. Some of the better episodes are like The Wounded and The Drumhead and Family. But even The Wounded and The Drumhead and even Family, I'd call them classic great episodes, but they're not the ones that you'd want to throw on immediately. They're not something that really pops on if you were just scrolling through Netflix. You're like, oh, I'll watch The Drumhead. That'll be a good way. It's a good way to fall asleep, sort of, on some level. It's not even that. It's a good episode, but I just don't think that they're not the episodes like Tapestry or Cause and Effect or Best of Both Worlds Part 1, Yesterday's Enterprise. They're not those quality classics. They're like a lesser classic of that. So that would be it. Season 4 was kind of a letdown year of the show. It's something that I actually learned from the podcast. It's not really that good of a year. So that's it. Season 1, Season 2, Season 7, and then Season 4. So we've got 3 seasons left. Which one would I get rid of next? Or which one would I be able to do without next? This is when it actually starts getting really tough. These are the 3 best seasons, obviously. but I'm going to put season 5 in this spot. Season 5 has great episodes. It's got The Inner Light. It's got Cause and Effect. Conundrum is one of my favorites. Darmok is another great one. It's probably the most quintessential TNG episode, in my opinion. It's got Disaster, Power Play, Iborg, The Next Phase. Those are all the next strongest ones. So it's a good mix of shows. It's the show really working, firing on all levels. They've got a lot of sci-fi stuff going on. They've got the touching Inner Light stories that are character-based. They have the harder sci-fi like Cause and Effect, which is one of the greatest concept episodes that the show ever did. Conundrum is a good mystery. Even the misfires like Unification, or where they bring in Spock, and the Masterpiece Society, which is basically just a misfire. I don't know if that episode actually has anything redeeming about it whatsoever. But it's got Iborg. Times Arrow ends it out, which is whatever. Ethics, character works and stuff like that. But season 5, I don't really have anything bad to say about season 5. It has this rough stretch in the middle, which goes from the game. You might even start earlier than that, although these are okay. So I'd say from the game to the Masterpiece Society is a pretty bad stretch of episodes. It ends better than that, but even when it ends stronger, it has this other stretch of kind of middling episodes mixed in with very good ones. So I'm going to put season 5 as the next one to get rid of, even though it has probably some of the best standalone episodes in it. It has lower quality stuff too that drags it down quite a bit. So far we've got season 1 as the worst, then season 2, season 7, season 4, season 5. So should we do this? I guess we'll do this. We won't skip to number 1 and leave everyone guessing about what number 2 would be. So number 2 is season 6. So this is where the breakdown away from the raw data kind of runs away, because I have season 6 as number 1, and then season 3, which is the only other remaining one, is 3.15. But season 6, outside of this slightly rough start where Times Arrow leads to Man of the People, and then you have the Chukyu and Rascals and Fistful of Days and Quality of Life. These are not very good episodes. But after that, the second half of season 6 is probably one of the stronger stretches that the show ever managed to do. We were talking about it in on the Discord channel for the podcast. Season 6 is like the ratings of our 1 to 5 scale. Season 6 is the 4 out of 5 season. Everything's slightly above average, except for those episodes that I pointed out before. But the season as a whole is slightly above average. There's not a lot of classic great episodes in it. The two best I have are Chain of Command 2 and Tapestry. But there's a lot of 4s. Chain of Command Part 1, Ship in a Bottle is great. Face of the Enemy is good. Birthright, the first part, is very, very good. Once they get rid of Data's storyline, it kind of falls off a little bit. But then you have Lessons, which is really strong. Frame of Mind, Rightful Heir, and Second Chances. Those are all really good episodes. And that's a lot of really good episodes in a single season. So season 6 was season 6 is the show at its peak, in my opinion. It doesn't have the great classic 5 out of 5 episodes that you've seen come before that, but it's the show working on all levels. The characterization and the plots had worked out. They were comfortable knowing what they were doing. The creative staff was fully fueled up or ready to go. It was a really strong season that, pound for pound, episode by episode, is probably the best that the show ever had. And it makes it all the more apparent how weak season 7 is when you go from season 6 into season 7 and you notice the drop off. But that would be it. Season 6 is it's sort of the better version of season 2. It's got a bunch of the weird episodes like Frame of Mind and Tapestry and Second Chances. They're sort of the take some chances episodes, I guess, in the way the season 2 was, except season 2 was not good. Season 6 is the opposite of that. It's the very good season that took a lot of chances, knowing that the show was wrapping up in another year and a half. And so then we get to the best season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's going to be season 3 for me. And season 3 is the best season, mostly because of how shocking it is that it comes out of season 1 and 2. And when you watch Evolution, which is the first episode of that year, the production changes are immediately noticeable. Everything looks a million times better. The film stock looks better. The costuming looks better. The actors look more comfortable. The writing is more comfortable. And it's a huge change that led into probably some of the strongest episodes that a season ever had. So you have Survivors, Defector, Yesterday's Enterprise, Sarek, and Best of Both Worlds Part 1 are my top ones of that one. After that, you have The Offspring, Sins of the Father, Hollow Pursuits, The Most Toys, and Who Watches the Watchers are the next tier. In my opinion, season 3 is really where TNG started to move away from the TOS mold and turned into its own kind of a show. It's always been said that they focus more on the character work at that point, and that's true. A lot of the characters, or a lot of the episodes have to deal with characters like the offspring, sins of the father. It's great, got great sci-fi concept episodes like Yesterday's Enterprise and Sarek, which is a fitting way to bring TOS back in and make it a TNG episode at the same time. Sarek's one of my favorite episodes of the show. And then, of course, it ends with Best of Both Worlds, which really cemented the fact that it's no longer a TOS reboot. It's its own thing. People forget it's a Riker episode because Picard getting captured is one of the big things about it. But it's a great cliffhanger. It's a great way to end a terrific year of the show. All of the scripts were really good. Even the sort of failures of season 3 are kind of interesting to me. Like The Vengeance of Actor could have been interesting, but it's such a failure that it's a very discussable failure, even though for how terrible it is. But when you've got stuff like Who Watches the Watchers, which is in my opinion, the best Prime Directive episode, you've got a solid string of character stuff like Booby Trap, The Enemy, and The Hunted, and Deja Q. Like they're middling episodes, but they're better than a middling episode of like season 1 or 2 or even season 7. It's a good year. And I think that the second half here, starting with Yesterday's Enterprise to the end of the season, basically, it's really on Transfigurations. That's terrible. Is probably one of the stronger stretches. It's neck and neck with the second half of season 6, but this stretch here of season 3 is pretty damn good too. Yesterday's Enterprise, The Offspring, and Sins of the Father themselves are probably the best 3 episodes in a row that the show ever did. So I think that's it. So ranking from the bottom: season 1, season 2, season 7, season 4. Season 5, season 6, and then season 3. But yeah, season 3 and 6 are my top 2, I think. And you could, depending on what you're trying to convince people about, picking either one of those 2 as a top TNG season would make sense to me. So that's about it. Guys, let me know where I went wrong. Let me know how wrong I am. Let me know where you would rank these things, I suppose. It's interesting. Let me know what you think your top and your bottom seasons are. I wonder if there'll be much change amongst those 2. The other ones probably mixing around in the middle would be something anyway. But I think that's it. Check out the podcast. There'll be a link in the video description below. And that's it for now. We're continuing DS9 on the podcast, and eventually I'll be able to do one of these for DS9. But thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.